Oh, gotta love the Lance Battle Music Metal Remix. Welcome. It is Moxnix. And today I'm not really going to show you games since most of them are kind of like that and they're kind of crappy. Instead, I'm going to go over my deck again in depth, um, tell you exactly why every single card is in this Storm deck, different lines you should be taking, tutors you should be using, etc. And I am literally going to go through every single card. So, I like to sort by converted mana cost, but that's not really how I exactly want to show all the cards, but I'm going to do that in the first place just to go through the lands real quickly. The land base is very important. There's not a single land in this deck that isn't good. The reason we play all these lands in this deck is because there's a reason for each and every land. First of all, we want to maximize our island count for high tide. Also, if you notice my curve here, I'm mostly blue, but I do have a lot of heavy black cards here. Doomsday, Grim Tutor, Necropotence, Dark Petition, Ad Nauseum. Got multiple black in all of those cards, as well as my finisher and Tendrils of Agony. So, it's mostly a blue-black deck, and here are the cards we're splashing in red. We're going to put all of our red cards in one nice, neat little pile over here for now. And if you'll notice, there's not a single card in this deck that uses more than one red. And the reason for that is we are just playing a splash of red. So we're going to play Maximum Islands that can be red, and Steam Vents, and Volcanic Island. And we're also going to play, was Z the zoom button? Yeah, there it is. We're also going to play both of the black reds. And the reason being for that is when you hit a red only fetch, you want to be able to hit your black source. Even if this is in play or if Jeleva's exiled it, that's part of the reason we played the Blood Crypt. The other reason is we need this as a black-red source, so if we didn't play it as this Blood Crypt right here, we would want to be playing a land that taps for all three that comes to play untapped, and there's not very many good ones that we don't play already. So this card's not a bad draw in that we're considering it one of our black-red splash cards as far as our mana base goes, as well as the fact that we're able to fetch it out with a red-only fetch, or possibly a black-only fetch when we need to get our red splash unlocked. If we've lost access to or have already tapped said Badlands. And we can easily lose access to this card because we're using this card. And there's been a lot of misconceptions about Jeleva as the commander. She's really good. Yes, unlike something like Zur, it's not as consistent, but she's very, very fast. If you hit a good card, a Yawgmoth's Will, or a Tutor Spell, or an Ad Nauseum, or a Doomsday, something powerful like that, even something as simple as Demonic Tutor, she really gets the ball going. Not to mention the fact she can also hit Time Spiral, Mind's Desire, and all of our wheel spells. Let's go to our 3 drops here. Not to mention the fact you don't actually whiff. All the tutors are pretty good, but you don't actually whiff when you hit a card like Frantic Search, or even something as simple as Brainstorm. Lets you keep going or have an additional gas when you play the card. Additionally, you can play the Jeleva early in your line to try to push through counter magic, just to try to have multiple gas cards when you go off. Even hitting something like a High Tide you can use to set up on your second main phase to win. She can easily help you push through when you don't have enough gas, or push through hate cards. Not to mention the fact that if people are playing onboard hate permanents, flipping something like this isn't necessarily bad at all. She can whiff, and she does exile some of your cards, but we've built in the resilience that most of the time that's not going to be a problem. And it's kind of nice that she scales in that if she does get killed, or let's say you have like a Chain of Vapor in your hand or a Red Blast, if you're gassed, you can just kill your own Jeleva and then flip 6. And that doesn't even take into account that other people play good cards as well. So about the only thing better than killing everyone with Yawgmoth's Will is being able to use it early because you flip someone else's Yawgmoth's Will. That's quite excellent, being able to take a Yawg Will line and then still have one in your deck. That's double vintage power, and I'll take that all day. Not to mention the fact most people in black are going to be playing these tutor spells. Sometimes you get the random Time Warp out of the other blue deck. So she's very, very good. It's not to be underestimated. Yes, she's not necessarily playing A, but she's not the reason she's not playing A isn't because she's bad. It's because the cards in the deck are so broken that most of the time the lines I already have are going to be stronger. And if she only flips something like a Factor Fiction, it's really not that bad. So the first thing we go over is not only do you get Jeleva when you play Jeleva in your command zone, when you're choosing your splash for the deck, you get the choice of the better splash cards, or you get the choice of maybe a slightly more consistent general. There's really no reason to play 5 colors because the deck is already tight with the blue and black spells already being so powerful, and you already pretty much having everything you need, that you want your splash cards to be high impact. And you get to play quite a few splash cards for a splash in red. I'm playing 8 splash cards, as you can see here. So Vandal Blast, not a bad splash card because we want to have, it's part of our control suite. I guess I can pull my entire control suite out here. Let's put all the control cards, or cards that we can potentially use as control, in one pile. Notice 5 of my red cards I'm using in my control suite. But we play quite a diverse bit of control, especially when you think about how many tutors we play to be able to grab the cards. But we have a lot of different cards in here that could be considered controlling cards, not Future Sight, Force of Will. And a lot of them are fast, and that's because our curve is fast. But it's also fairly diversified, so that we can handle a plethora of different kinds of problems that other people can throw at us. Let's get, I know I'm missing something. There we go. Toxic Deluge. Pact Negation. Let's see, do I see any more control in here? I think this is all Goldfish City left in the deck. Okay, so out of our 99 over here, we have got 17 cards that function as control for the deck. The Vandal Blast and the, let's kind of organize them here. Where's the Hercules Recall? Maybe that's the one I didn't pull. There it is. Vandal Blast and Hercules Recall give us excellent answers to artifact-based decks. Things that use lots of tons of mana rocks and Winter Orb, things that try to stack lock you out of the game, or just things like Kozilek that want to spam mana rocks. These cards are incredibly excellent against both of them. In addition, Vandal Blast's 1 mana mode is incredibly good just against the format in general, as a turn 1 mana Crypt and Soul Ring is not very hard to draw and incredibly powerful, and sets up other decks for very, very strong opening plays. And being able to quickly remove that on our first turn is excellent. In addition, the Hercules Recall can also be used on ourselves to bounce all our own mana rocks to build Storm for Mind's Desire, letting us win the game fairly easily. So this has a dual purpose as well. So both excellent, excellent control cards. Now, I do play also dedicated creature control. So things like Gadok Teague, Thalia, things like that are a problem for the deck. So we play these 2 dedicated creature removal slots, and the Toxic Deluge not only gets around the Gadok Teague, gets around indestructible things like Avacyn. It's fairly cheap costed. With 2 colorless in its cost, it's very easy to play off something like a Soul Ring or a Mana Crypt, and it's very cheap. It does eat into our life-based engines, making cards like Necropotence and Ad Nauseam weaker, but it's not necessarily a huge problem, and I'm not beyond using something like a mini Tendrils of Agony to build my life back up in a grindier game. So I think this is the best general Wrath of God that we can play in the deck, and considering we have so many tutors, it really doesn't behoove us to play lots of creature wipes, since we don't really want to on our lines. So the purpose this serves is pretty much being our tutor target for those bad situations when the board becomes overwhelming. In addition, the Grape Shot here serves as our 3rd standard win condition. You can actually win with all 3 win conditions gone from your deck by putting yourself in a nearly infinite situation with a card like this. But the reason we want to have these 3 kill conditions is because the Jeleva can easily exile multiple kill conditions in the Tendrils of Agony or the Laboratory Maniac. So the main way you win with Grape Shot when you've lost your 2 other kill conditions is to assemble the mini combo in Future Sight plus Sensei's Divining Top, and then you're going to either combo that with Helm of Awakening to draw your whole deck, or you can combo with Mind Over Matter to draw your whole deck. Because once you have the Mind Over Matter, obviously every single card you draw can be a Lotus Petal. If you have something bigger in play, say a Gilded Lotus or a Grim Monolith, you're netting mana each time, and every single card you draw could be potentially a something that's like a brown Dark Ritual Mana Vault type deal, or a Black Lotus. So this can easily sub for the Helm of Awakening, and that's how you use Grape Shot as the 3rd kill condition in the deck. But it's not to be underestimated the fact that this is a control spell. It's great for wiping mana dorks. It's great for killing problematic generals. Someone drops a Nekusar and you just can't take the damage. It's very easy to just chain a couple cantrips and then blow their board back. But against something like Hate Bear, it's very easy to kill their Hate Bears, even if it's something like a what's that one creature that's 1 and a white that you can only play one spell a turn unless it's artifacts. You can easily play an artifact, then Grape Shot and get rid of it. So, but this is our 2 Hate Bear really control cards here. Um, Next is going to be our Hand Rip. I'm going to show you my Hand Rip cards here. Duress and Thoughtseize. These two are both incredibly excellent. They hit almost everything that we want them to hit. Thoughtseize has the disadvantage of losing a 2 life, which is definitely relevant because I've said we use these life-based engines and things that have our life totals, and we eat away at our life total with so many different cards in this deck, especially this one, which is pretty much an instant win at high life. But as you get lower in life, you're going to need more and more mana for this card to be able to win you a game on turn. Though typically if you play it on someone else's turn, you're probably going to have more than enough mana. Even drawing like 7 cards or something off this should easily win you the game in this deck. You've got fairly good odds. So, but it's definitely worth noting that you do lose the 2 life, but it's excellent that you're able to deal with problematic cards that we don't have a whole lot of answers for because, for example, enchantments. Enchantments, we only have a couple bounce spells, which I guess I'll get to those, to remove things like that. So if someone plays, let's say, a Back to Basics, or a Blood Moon, or something like that, it can be really devastating. Even something as simple as an Energy Flux. There's plenty of enchantments that we really don't want to see. And Thoughtseize can hit also the creatures that we're trying to remove with the Grape Shot and the Toxic Deluge, in addition to the fact that it can still hit the artifacts or counter spells or whatever else we're trying to eat out of their hand, or even their win card if we're playing from a defensive position. And at 1 mana, it's incredibly good. It also has a very good synergy, these 2 cards do, with our Lion's Eye Diamond. You should know this if you play Legacy, or even if you've played Vintage with Lion's Eye Diamond in your deck. As it allows you to remove threats and then use the LED, whereas if you had something like a counter spell, you wouldn't be able to use that after cracking your LED, assuming they save their counter spell for your game-ending card post-LED, which typically is comboed with the Yawgmoth's Will, because it allows you to pretty much get 2 Black Lotus uses out of this. So, the Duress, it obviously cannot hit as many cards, but it doesn't cost you the life. It's still absolutely excellent, as it gets rid of pretty much everything that Thoughtseize does other than the creatures. And neither one of them hits lands, but that's really not too much of an issue, as those aren't the cards you're really going to get rid of anyway. So they're both excellent, excellent cards. I guess we can put Dakfaden up here with my Artifact Hate. So he becomes really my 3rd Artifact Hate, but he's not really a true control card. He's been excellent, one of my most recent additions, by the way. Mainly, he's excellent because he has the word draw on him, right? So he's very good with all the top of deck tutors. He's instant win with the Doomsday. So when you have a Dakfaden online, your tutors will almost always get Doomsday because you're going to be able to draw 2 cards for free. So when you have a Dakfaden online and you draw a tutor, most likely the tutor target is going to be Doomsday to end the game. In addition to that, though, he steals those early Soul Rings and stuff that Vandablast is so good at getting rid of, and at the same time, he powers your own mana up. He can even make opponents not want to play their own mana rocks, or even big mana rocks, because once you've got the Dakfaden out, it becomes not very, very good for them to try to play into it. But the other thing that's really big is, you'll notice there's a lot of cards that are very important to the build that aren't necessarily good in your opening hand. Cards that you don't want to see right away, but are definitely excellent by the end of the game. And he allows you to pitch those cards to then pick up other cards that you do want to see early in the game to get your game plan moving. At 3, he's very easily costed. Obviously, he's very good with the 0 mana acceleration, because that'll allow you to play him on the 2nd turn. So definitely very good with those cards, as well as the 1 mana acceleration that we play in this deck. So, Dakfaden, very, very good control card, and I guess I should have put him up top before. Next, we're going to go into the bounce spells. The reason bounce spells are so important in this deck is they're catch-alls. They're catch-alls for any permanent type. If we didn't have a counter spell ready at the time, they can get rid of whatever it is that's stopping our combo from winning, stopping us from continually moving cards in and out of our hands to finish our storm. And the Chain of Vapor, much like the Hurkyl's Recall, has the double use in that we can sack our lands and bounce our own stuff, yet again, to build for Mind's Desire, or simply to build mana for our line, because we can easily bounce cards that net mana when they come back into play. And when you're doing things like that, you can easily finish off your line if you're short on mana. The Cyclonic Rift is almost always typically used in the 1U mode. It's simply just a bounce spell most of the time. But the fact that it has Overload allows it to get around other problems, such as a giant hate bear board when something like this has been locked out. Say that someone, drops a Iona and blocks your black or something like that. Or simply the board is just so massive that you need to be able to pop in Overload mode, though most of the time it's simply a bounce spell catch-all. And the icing on the cake is really the Overload. So unlike a lot of decks that would be a controlling deck or a deck that plays more mana ramp, let's say a deck that tries to win as fast as me, but instead of playing as many hit cards and having a lower mana barrier to combo, they play a lot more ramp cards and just want to get to a higher mana cost sooner, or a control deck that would want to overload this. Most of the time, this is just our secondary bounce spell and catch-all spell, which is fairly excellent. Not to mention the fact that these bounce spells also combo quite excellently with all of our wheel spells, and that they're pretty much a permanent removal when we combo this with that, or a Time Twister, or a Time Spiral, or something like that. We can permanently get rid of any kind of problematic permanent we bounce when we're about to wheel out. Notion Thief is a combo card mainly, so I'm going to talk about him more when we're talking about some of the other cards, mainly the wheels. But it's definitely worth noting that he is a control card as well. Someone tries to cast a Brainstorm, plays a Jace the Mind Sculptor, throws out a Rhystic Study in their control deck. Notion Thief will completely not only lock those cards up, but very similar to Dak Faden, he gives us advantage at the same time drawing us cards. He also happens to combo quite nicely with Dak Faden, but as I mentioned to someone else recently, when you get the Notion Thief, you're probably not tutoring Dak Faden if you're not playing one-on-one, because it's just simply much more efficient to go get one of these cards and instantly win the game. But he's kind of separate in that. And other than that, we play a large counterspell suite. And the first two I want to talk about here is Red Blast and Pyroblast. If you notice, Pyroblast is slightly better in that you can target things that aren't blue. This is relevant for gaining Storm. This is relevant for if somehow Dak Faden gets turned online, though I don't think I've ever done that, but I guess it could be relevant. But building Storm is definitely something that's incredibly relevant in this deck. Let's say you got extra mana, being able to cast this on a mana rock's quite good, especially if there's no blue opponents in the game. But I consider these to be some of the most excellent fucking control cards that you can possibly play. Because similar to the problems I talked about before with not wanting to have a diverse set of answers, like the bounce cards, these cards hit anything blue that's already in play. So if someone plays a Rhystic Study and I can't go off without feeding that guy 1,000 cards and punting the game, I can easily get rid of it. It's also worth noting when blue is probably the most commonly and most powerful played color in the entire format, and everyone always has access to a legendary creature. Any blue creature, say a Nekusar or something that I really don't want to deal with on the board, or a Arkham, or any other disgusting blue general, can be removed with these. If someone wants to play a Storm Mirror and plays Mizzix, I can slaughter their Mizzix, and now I'm playing a better deck than them with black cards, and they've lost the one thing that gave them an edge. So in addition to that, they serve as the general defensive counter spells at 1 mana to help us protect our lines at a very, very cheap cost. So if I have a 5 or 6 mana winning line, I only need 1 additional mana to protect my combo. And in that vein, we also play Swan Song, Force of Will, and Pact of Negation as our cheap counters. That let us not only protect our lines, but cheaply counter people's plays while still progressing our own board state and moving towards our combo. I like the Swan Song better than the Flusterstorm because it does hit enchantments, and we don't have a lot of answers to enchantments, so if someone tries to play a Rest in Peace or one of the 1,000 other enchantments I don't want to deal with, it's very nice that it gets rid of it. I'm not really too worried about a 2/2 bird token. It's just an excellent card. Getting rid of instants and sorceries lets it play that same main role that these Pyroblasts and all these cards are playing, in that they defend my combos at a very, very cheap cost. But it has a nice little added bonus of hitting enchantments, whereas the Flusterstorm hits less things, and they are able to pay for it sometimes depending on what their mana is at. Where the Swan Song's guaranteed they're going to have to deal with it in one way or the other. And then we've got these 3 counter spells down here, which are more of my proactive counter spells. These are for dealing with generals. The mana drain's obviously broken. You can set up so many lines. Half the time you use mana drain, you're using it more as a giant mana vault than you are, and the getting to counter a spell is almost a bonus. But these spells here are really my hard counter spells. They can be used defensively because they're down at 2, but more often than not, they're going to be used to stop my opponent's winning plays than defend my own. This counter spell is maybe the weakest counter spell in the deck. You can easily play an Arcane Denial here, and I wouldn't hate you for it. I like it better because I play the deck a lot in 1v1, and in general, I just don't like giving my opponents cards. I'd rather play a counter spell, not turn to Divination. So let's just say I'm countering something to let them draw a card because they just put a tutor on top. I mean, I guess I stalled them because they have to wait till the end of the turn. But the Arcane Denial is definitely playable, but I like the counter spell better. Plus, it comes in foil. I wouldn't hate you for playing the Arcane Denial. They're both very good cards. The Remand is incredibly important because it's excellent throughout the game. The Remand, like some of my other cards, has a dual purpose. The reason you're going to be playing the Remand is mainly so you can bounce your Tendrils back to your hand or your Mind's Desire back to your hand to double up on your Storm count to kill the whole table. But additionally, early in the game, you can tempo somebody just to cantrip. Let's say you're just in need of lands. You might play the Remand just because you need the word draw card. You can use the word draw card in one of your lines to get a tutor off the top of your deck. You know, play a Mox Diamond after your Ad Nauseam or a Mox Opal or something, and then remand it because you played an Imperial Seal to go get that Mind's Desire or something to finish the game off. But you can also just use it early in the game as a tempo play to block anyone's tap out play and then trade it out for another card, which is absolutely excellent. So that's my control suite. I feel like it's diversified. I'm able to hit all permanent types, come back from different situations, and defend my deck in a way that protects my interests and gets me to where I need to be. So we're going to move a couple of these cards back over. Mainly this Notion Thief, so I guess I'll talk about this next. Well, I guess we can finish our red splash and what else we get from red. One of the other major things we get from red, other than that all-important third kill condition and better control cards, as well as just high card quality in general, we get an extra tutor at 1, which I love gamble. Yes, it could possibly be an Entomb, but you can play around the gamble. You can tutor in such a way that no matter what you discard, you're still in a better position. The flavor text, I think, does a great justice. When you've got nothing, you might as well trade it for something else. In addition, it happens to be a 1-mana into-hand tutor that's absolutely godlike off of Ad Nauseam. Only hitting you for 1 life, as well as putting a card directly into your hand for a single mana is very, very powerful. Hitting this card early in the game to trade for a wheel spell or something like that, or even grab a Quick Soul Ring or Mana Crypt is not to be underestimated, even if you end up entombing. In some of those situations, it would be quite good, especially if maybe you grab a card like this as your hit card in Past in Flames. Past in Flames is excellent for a couple reasons. First of all, it gives you a second Yawgmoth's Will effect, which is excellent. It's obviously not as powerful as Yawgmoth's Will, but many times, especially when you're using High Tide Tech or lots of rituals, this can easily win you the game. You can easily dump it in an Intuition pile and be guaranteed to get your hit. And also, as your graveyard builds, like let's say someone's milling you or plays a Mesmeric Orb or has some type of mill strategy, it definitely benefits you more than hurts you, because once you hit the Past in Flames, you're probably able to kill them. But the most powerful card we splash for is the Wheel. And the Wheel is incredibly, incredibly powerful because draw 7s are disgusting in this deck. They let us develop our board state and then quickly get to more lands. We play low land count in this deck because we want our Mind's Desire hits to finish the game easily. We want to have a robust top deck so that if we do get put in top deck mode, we have a better chance of being able to go off or keep pushing through once we're put into a bad situation like that. And it also happens to combo incredibly well with certain cards in the deck that make it insanely powerful, like the Lion's Eye Diamond. But also, when you hit this card in combination with any tutor, you can now grab Notion Thief with either the Wheel of Fortune, the Time Spiral, the Time Twister, or the Windfall here, and now you've got a Mind Twist the board, draw 28, instantly kill everyone, which is game-endingly powerful. And if you look at the mana cost being so low, it's very, very easy to just go Degenerate Rock, turn 1, Notion Thief, turn 2, untap Wheel of Fortune, game over. Untap Windfall, game over. Untap Time Twister, game over. And if you get up to Time Spiral, it's definitely game over because you've got untapped mana in addition to all the cards you just drew. So, incredibly, incredibly powerful cards. They definitely make the deck. They let you run less lands. The Windfall is slightly weaker in the early game, but it's kind of important for some crazy lines you can take when you lose all your win conditions. And post ad nauseum, you can, let's say, it looks like you whiff, but you're holding like 15 to 20 cards. You can easily just cast Windfall and know that hitting 20 more cards, you have a pretty good chance of, especially considering the cards you just drew were whiff cards, of being able to still win. So the Windfall can situationally be even better. Or, for instance, if someone does have a Rhystic Study or Consecrated Sphinx or something disgusting in play, you can actually feed their hand intentionally to get off a disgustingly huge windfall and finish the entire game. But they're all very, very powerful cards. Um, so that's it for my red splash and my control suite. Let's go through a couple other things here. I think I already talked about the lands. Pretty much max island count, max untapped lands, max splash cards that give me red without giving up blue or black. And I feel like my island count total with all my fetches and this many islands gives me just about as many islands as I need, as well as enough basics to fight through non-basic hate when I need to. So we'll go to 0 rocks here. Chrome Mox, Lion's Eye Diamond, Lotus Petal, Mana Crypt, Mox Diamond, Mox Opal. First of all, you want to maximize these type of cards when you're trying to kill people with Ad Nauseam. Which isn't to say this is just an Ad Nauseam deck and that's the card you're going to be tutoring going for every game. As I told you, when you see a Dak Faden, you're typically going to tutor a Doomsday. So when do you tutor Ad Nauseam? Well, you tutor Ad Nauseam when your hand has lands and mana. Not only do you want to hit these cards off of Ad Nauseam, but when your hand has nothing but lands and mana cards, Ad Nauseam becomes your tutor target. Because you can quickly cast this card now, and you can draw enough cards to kill everyone and combo off of a single card. You don't really need any extra specific cards to make Ad Nauseam win. All you really need is mana to cast it. So you want as many cards that act as rituals when you're underneath Ad Nauseam, because they allow you to chain together enough Storm to get off a large Mind's Desire, which will then hit enough cards that get mana and other cards that you'll pretty much be able to cast tons and tons of cards in your deck. You'll hit powerful hit cards that will let you go get and string together whatever you need to finish them off. So, very, very important. Another important card for the Ad Nauseam here. Something that a lot of people I don't see them play as much or don't like as much as Mind Over Matter. Now, I'll admit, this card is not something you want to see in your opening hand. It doesn't really do too much for you early. It is difficult to cast, but this is your infinite mana battery. This card is an excellent card to hit off Ad Nauseam, despite the fact it costs 6, because as soon as you can slam it, you've pretty much won. You can turn every card in your hand, including additional lands, into free mana. Just getting this off with a wheel or anything else is absolutely excellent. And it's one of the few ways we can combo off when we've lost all of our win conditions. It's just a very, very, very powerful card, and I do not think it's worth losing this card to play a, extra control card that's worse than anything in your deck, or extra fast mana card that's crappier that's just an Izzet Signet, or something like that, just because the raw power of this card and how it glues the deck together in this, the way the format's built, I don't think you can pass up on Mind Over Matter, and I've absolutely loved it. But yeah, lots of rituals, lots of fast mana in the 0 slot. Excellent for Ad Nauseam. Chrome Mox is excellent. In this deck, it's very easy to pitch cards that we don't need, especially things like cantrips that we don't need early game. And it can easily not only lead into a Dak Faden, but these split cards like the Dak Faden or even the Notion Thief or the Limdu's Vault give us multiple mana off of this. Good for very fast starts, good off of Ad Nauseam. Good that it makes mana and is free, so it acts as a ritual and goes with everything Storm wants to do. Lion's Eye Diamond is one of the more broken cards in the deck. It's very, very important for Doomsday piles, as the most efficient Doomsday piles win at 4 or 5 mana, and they almost always include going Lion's Eye Diamond plus Probe off of drawing 2 from, where's Gush? I guess we can put this at the 0 pile because we're never really going to be paying 5 for this. I think I have before, or I've hit it off jeleva and cast it for 0, but pretty much the general pile is, at least, there's lots of different piles, but the general pile is you're going to be gushing to pick this card and this card up. And with an additional cantrip from your hand, let's say it's a Ponder, you're easily going to be able to then grab your Yawgmoth's Will and your Lab Man and seal the game for very, very cheap. 5 mana to win the game is not very much at all, especially when the only cards you need to start the chain is this card, plus any card with the word draw on it. Okay? So let's go to our 1-drops. Gitaxian Probe. Gitaxian Probe is an excellent fucking card. They if you go and watch So Many Insane Plays by Stephen Minnie, I love that show. One of my favorite episodes was Gitaxin Probe when he talked about how good the card was, why it was better in certain decks, and what the true cost of playing a Gitaxin Probe is. But this card essentially thins your deck. It serves as something that picks cards off the top of your deck for your top of deck tutors. This is very important when you're finishing a game with Ad Nauseam, as well as simply you just wheel and you're going for that big Mind's Desire finisher and you're trying to find your hit card that ends the game. In addition to that, you can look at someone's hand early. You can be able to see whether or not they have the counter spell. It's free, builds free storm, and it has draw cards. So it's an excellent, excellent card. Even though it's free, it counts as blue, so it pitches to the Force of Will. Just a very, very good card. Braidstorm is excellent. With the number of cracklands and tutors and other ways we search our deck displays, this can easily give you the card quality of an Ancestral Recall. Being able to pick up 3 and then put down any 2 lets you craft your hand in insane, insane ways. It's instant speed, so you can use it on other people's turns. Just a very, very good cantrip that lets you craft your hand. High Tide. High Tide is a very, very important combo card in this deck. One of the ways that we build Storm and make tons and tons of mana in this deck is off High Tide. We have lots of untaps in this deck with the Turnabout, the Frantic Search, the Time Spiral, the Candelabra, and comboing them with High Tide and our very high island count, you're very, very easily able to make absurd amounts of mana to help finish out your lines. It's important that this card is searchable by the Merchant Scrolls. It's one of our main targets for Merchant Scroll, other than something like the Mana Drain, or maybe if we already have this, one of the second untapping pieces. Mystical Tutor, pretty simple. 1 mana blue tutor, finds any instant or sorcery, instant speed. Excellent card. Needed to help us finish off our combos, can find us control spells if we need them. Ponder, another excellent cantrip, lets you see essentially 4 cards. Both the Ponder and the Brainstorm, and to some extent the Preordain, can pretty much almost be considered a land slot plus, because early in the game you can use them to find your land drops, but later in the game you can find them to hit gas spells. And when you're hitting them at the end of the game, it's you only increase the cost of your line by a single mana. So Ponder and Preordain are both excellent cards. Dark Ritual, incredibly important. One of the best rituals ever printed, especially for a Storm deck. Yet again, should be pretty self-explanatory. Lets you split easily to Necropotence, Doomsday, and other cards because it's got the triple black. Oh, that's something I didn't mention. One of the lands I play that's kind of a random land in here is the Sunken Runes. Being able to split to double blue or double black is absolutely excellent, by the way. Same deal here with Candelabra. Being able to split colorless mana off your colorless mana rocks, or split. I think the last game I played, actually the one I just showed you, I used this Dark Ritual and I split it with this Sunken Runes to play the Future Sight combo and instantly win the game. That guy actually played a really shitty game because I'm assuming he probably had a counter spell in his hand with that deck and he chose not to play it. He played Jace into a deck that was obviously combo, which isn't good to begin with, and then he didn't plus it. He used the Brainstorm ability, and I actually drew the Demonic Tutor off the top, which let me kill him on the 3rd turn instead of having to continue to play that game. So he kind of played that game incredibly shit, which is kind of surprising because that guy's typically a good player, but he was just being kind of greedy or just didn't think I had it. Imperial Seal. Very, very good. Not Vampiric Tutor power just because it's sorcery speed, but a 1 mana tutor that gets you any card in the deck is absolutely excellent. Yet again, pretty self-explanatory. These 2 cards are some of the best cards in the deck. The Candelabra. The Candelabra is excellent with the High Tide tech. That's the main reason we play it, because it lets us double up on all of our mana. If you have enough colorless rocks out, with Candelabra, once you're in a High Tide chain, card like Turnabout is usually going to target your artifacts because you're going to be able to get even more mana using it. But it also is simply used to filter the colorless mana from our rocks to colored mana to get the cards that we need to have out, or split to triple black to slam a Necro or Doomsday, etc., etc. You can split an island back into your fetch or your dual land or something like that to get the kind of mana you need. Mana Vault, yet again, Ritual, kind of went over those. Lets you play really, really fast cards. Happens to be excellent with the Ad Nauseam, as it pays all 3 of the colorless costs, so you can usually go Mana Vault, Tutor Spell, Ad Nauseam, game. Soul Ring, don't think I have to explain Soul Ring. Sensei's Top. Important for 1,000 reasons. One, it has the word draw on it, so it's excellent with the Doomsday, in that it's a free cantrip you can flip. It actually makes for some of the more interesting piles, since it actually adds an additional card to your pile, so you have to think a little bit more when you're using it. In addition to that, it's part of our Future Top combo, so it lets us draw on our entire deck. And similar to the Brainstorm, it gives us insane high card quality, and the more fetch lands you draw with it, the better. Yet again, just like the Probe and any other cards with the word draw, lets us pick our top of deck tutors up. But you have to keep note, when you have this top, you have to always know that this is a possibility. Now, when you have this card, not only is this a possibility, but this is also a possibility because Future Sight instantly wins the game with Doomsday. So you don't necessarily always go straight for Future Top, especially if you don't have one of the auxiliary pieces. If you just have a single tutor, sometimes it's easier to go Doomsday. Though if you're in a position where your opponents could potentially interrupt you, or you think that they're holding control based on how they're playing, number of cards in hand, etc., it may be easier or safer, more is probably the better word, to go set up that combo. Copy Artifact, one of the mana accelerants we play in this deck. The reason this card I think is excellent is A, it can copy the Broken Mana Rock, so this can easily just be a 2 mana, Mana Crypt or Soul Ring. Those are played turn 1 almost, I'd say at least half the games I play. See one of those cards early in the game, someone's going to get one. Happens to combo exceptionally well with the Gilded Lotus, being able to play pretty much another Gilded Lotus, and then getting an extra mana, because it actually costs less. When the amount of mana it's going to instantly produce is disgusting. There are a lot of decks I play that are more artifact based, things with like Mishra's Workshop, where you can get lots of Guild Lotus to play when you're playing things like Phyrexian Metamorph, etc. But at 2 mana, this card's kind of hard to pass up. Sometimes you can play Candelabra under High Tide, a second one. In addition to the fact that other people play really good artifacts that aren't even mana rocks that you can definitely want to copy. So I guess I'd say the disadvantage of this is sometimes there aren't mana rocks on the field, though it's fairly rare. And when that happens, it can be dead for a couple turns, though it'll eventually probably turn online. This card's excellent. You can copy a Lion's Eye Diamond with it when you're trying to go off. There's lots of cool things you can do with this card. So definitely worth it in a mana rock slot. Impulse, very good crafting cantrip. Not as good as the other ones at like opening a pile because it costs 2 and you kind of have to do something weird things with Doomsday. But being able to dig 4 cards is excellent. Lets you make the land drops early. Lets you find the gas later. You can hold it up at the same time when you're holding up your proactive counterspells and mana drain counterspell or remand. In addition to holding up, like instant speed tutors like the Vampiric Tutor or the Limdal's Vault, etc. So definitely a good cantrip. Merchant Scroll is your blue demonic tutor. It can go grab you your High Tide. It can go grab you your mana drain if you're taking a defensive line. It can go grab you your turnabout. I mean, if you really need to find cards, you could potentially get a Factor Fiction. Or if you need a card that's not a blue instant, you can always go and grab your Mystical Tutor and go find whatever card you need. You can even sometimes go Merchant Scroll into Mystical Tutor into Black Tutor if you're really looking for a certain card. Cabal Ritual, again, very good ritual card. Once your graveyard's filled up, that is 5 skulls. You got a Helm of Awakening in play, and you could be netting 4 off this ritual. Rituals and Storm should be pretty much simple. Demonic Tutor, one of the best cards in the deck. This should be, yet again, simple. 2 mana, go get any card. That fact that it's 1 colorless, 1 black makes it Vintage Power and broken. Night's Whisper. Night's Whisper is a very powerful card. It's used in some of our Doomsday piles that don't require Gush online, some of our fastest piles. The easiest way to win with them is to use Night's Whisper, and sometimes you'll be using Night's Whisper and Dark Ritual in your pile to set up your Yawgmoth's Will. In addition to that, it's just very good in the early game. It nets you an additional card. Very easy to cast. It's very easy to just drop a Mox Diamond or a Signet or something like that, and then quickly refill with a Night's Whisper and be in a better position. Limdal's Vault is one of the weaker tutors in the deck. I'd probably put it in the bottom 2 tutors, in that it costs you a lot of life, so it definitely hurts your Ad Nauseam plan, your Necro plan, and things of that nature. But it's very unique and powerful in the fact that it can, A, get around certain cards like the Aven Mind Sensor, which is really nice because you're not actually tutoring, you're looking at cards. But it can also do things that no other tutor can do by building you 2 card piles that, or even more. It pretty much, almost like a mini Doomsday in that you get to look for multiple cards to stack your deck, and you get to see exactly what's going down. So sometimes when a single card couldn't pull you out of a situation, Limdal's Vault can find piles that can. Whether that's getting you a Mana Crypt plus something else, or maybe even you're holding this Night's Whisper already and you know you're going to get 3 cards off of this. It's got some very interesting interactions. Definitely worth playing. It's kind of a poor man's Vampiric Tutor, but it definitely has It has some weaknesses, but it's got some incredibly, incredibly good benefits as well. Dimir Signet lets you split the color list to black and blue, the two most important colors. Gives you a black and a blue source. We need a couple more mana sources in this deck, and this is slightly better than playing additional lands at this point, as you can net mana off Mind's Desire hitting this, which is more relevant than you think. Grim Monolith, yet again, a card that can serve as a ritual, but more importantly, you can slam this down early in the game, and then you're jumping 3 mana ahead, which is excellent. So it's not quite Mana Vault, but it's close. Helm of Awakening, powerful storm card. The spell reduction cost tech is very, very good. I use even more of it when I try to play this kind of deck in French. It's also very important for setting up an easy future top combo, which costs essentially, like if you get this out, as you saw in the last game, pretty much nothing to execute. In addition to the fact that I have lots of colorless costs in my cards all across the board. And this in itself is a giant ritual card. Talisman of Dominance, yet again, untapped rock, blue or black, standard stuff, very good. Frantic Search. Frantic Search serves as both a High Tide enabler and a draw card. So not only does this pull cards off the top of the deck like all my other cards, but it also serves as a mana ramp spell underneath High Tide, which is absolutely excellent and does the same thing that Candelabra and all our other untappers does, and filters our mana to the correct colors. So a very, very powerful card. Great opening Doomsday piles if you have extra mana. Sets up protection piles really nicely if you have the extra mana to do a protection pile. So excellent card. Intuition. This is another card I see people ask, what do you get with it? And my answer is always, it depends, right? Depends on what's in your hand, what you think the opponent's going to give you. It's one of my favorite cards. You can kind of trick people. Let's say you want a certain card. You can put 2 cards that they probably definitely don't want to give you if they can't see your hand. And then a card that doesn't make any sense to them, that's really the card you want, and then you end up getting it. Combos exceptionally well with Yawgmoth's Will, which in addition means, since it combos with Yawgmoth's Will, means with any other tutor, it's very easy to build Mind's Desire, pile a bunch of rituals, and quite often if you don't have a card to combo with, you can just pile a shit ton of other tutors with this to set up your graveyard for the Yawgmoth's Will and then go get it with the other tutor. So excellent, excellent, excellent. Instant speed, so you can hold it up and cast it right before your turn. You can do Past in Flames piles with it. But a lot of times if you have another tutor, it's going to be comboing with the Yawgmoth's Will. Laboratory Maniac. Kill condition. That's pretty much it. It's a main kill condition for our Doomsday lines, and even if we don't have Doomsday or lose it for some reason, it serves as a very, very easy kill condition. Kill conditions are very important. Grim Tutor. Not one of the best tutors in the deck, but definitely very playable. The double black and the 3 life definitely hurt, but it is an into-hand tutor, and it is costed well enough that we can easily get this off in one of the earlier turns of the game without losing too much tempo. You can play it off a single Gilded Lotus, which is important. Just a standard tutor, not quite demonic tutor, but still very, very good and definitely worth playing. Doomsday we've talked about a lot. This card allows for stupidly cheap winning lines, most of the time with Laboratory Maniac. You can sometimes pull off Tendril loops and stuff like that. You can loop Time Twister and Doomsday multiple times, and Tendrils in between. If you have something out like this, and maybe this, to kill a whole table, or if people are at lower life. Necropotence. This is just a broken card. Even more powerful in one-on-one. In one-on-one, this card's tutored even more than it is in multiplayer, because you don't need to really be pushing pace. You don't really need to wait the turn, and you can definitely take more controlling lines. And when you get Necropotence, you can definitely take more controlling lines. You want to be able to have mana when you play this card. So let's say your opening hand is a Dark Ritual and Necro. It's not necessarily good to just slam that Necro down right away. Sometimes it obviously will be, like if you have no other play in your hand. But other times, it's sometimes better to make other plays first, so that by the time you slam it, you have open mana to defend this with the cards you draw. In general, I don't draw like 20 cards the very first time in this deck and then exile a bunch of my important cards. I'll draw like 7 or 8 cards a turn, or maybe I'll do 7 or 8 the first time and then draw as many as I need. You need to pay careful attention to your life total. You need to pay careful attention to the fact that when you discard, you exile. So sometimes you might end up bouncing your own Necro. It just depends. And it's also important to note that if someone goes to kill your Necro after you've already refilled, then it's Gravy Train, because you can activate it in response a bunch of times and then not have to deal with the exile and draw tons of cards. But in general, it's a 3-mana card that gives you essentially infinite cards, and pretty much if you land a Necro, you're probably going to win. But
you definitely need to know how to use the card effectively, and you can't be incredibly greedy with it. And it's definitely better to slam lots of mana cards out and then get a Necro down. Happens to be excellent with cards like Force of Will and quick counter spells, so you can constantly make use of all the cards that you're drawing off of it, so a bunch of them aren't dead. And you don't want to, draw into multiple kill conditions and then end up having to exile kill conditions just to have a keepable hand at that stage in the game. Factor Fiction. Factor Fiction is an incredibly good card. It lets you, in that it costs 3 colorless and 1 blue, so very easy to cast, very good to refill your hand. It's not one of the best cards in the deck. It's definitely not the most efficient. It's not a wheel or something like that. But I found it more than ample in being able to get me the cards I need. Great, and it's one of those cards that's also, yet again, even more powerful in one-on-one when we're not taking as many aggressive lines. But it's definitely worth playing as is. At instant speed, it's excellent, and in this card, piling pretty much any 5 cards, you're going to find what you want, and since you're the one who gets to pick the pile, you're always going to get the better end of the slice, and quite often people pile the card incredibly wrong, and you just get stupidly powerful piles. But yeah, digging 5 and getting probably 2 cards, maybe 3, and if you're taking 1, it's exactly the card you need, is very good. But it's definitely on the end of the top cards. Turnabout, very important for our high tide tech. Huge ritual later in the game, something that helps us finish the game out, kind of glue the rest of our plays together. Like I said, very good with the high tide, very good when you get a lot of mana artifacts out. Tendrils, main kill condition for the storm combo of the deck. Pretty much once you've essentially gone infinite, this is the card you click to kill everyone, or if you're playing paper, put on the table. Future Sight. In addition to the fact that it does the Future Top combo that I talked about a couple times, it's a very powerful draw engine. It lets us make your land drops very easy. If you can get this card on board quickly, it's yet again, another card that's almost stupidly more powerful in one-on-one, as this card pretty much must be removed. As not only does it instantly enable you to tutor things like Doomsday to instantly win the game, or Future Top, it lets you just pull way ahead in card advantage way too easily. Getting to play things off the top of your deck in this deck is disgusting. Ad Nauseam, the namesake card of the deck, 1 card combo, instantly wins the game. Obviously, I want to play Ad Nauseam in my Ad Nauseam combo deck. It's a card that definitely determines how I want to play the rest of my cards and makes my curve very important, because I don't want to be able to kill myself. It's notable that I stop at 6, so whenever I'm above 6, I can hit when I'm using this card. Excellent card to hit off the jeleva. Excellent card to cast pretty much any time that your life total isn't complete shit already. Dark Petition, another new card I've added to the deck. This deck has so many spells that you're pretty much always going to have access to spell mastery. It's worth noting that being able to get the triple black off of it means that sometimes it's actually better than a demonic tutor. Not often. And that you can, when you only have double black, now all of a sudden cast a Necropotence, cast a Doomsday to instantly win. This can easily go grab Yogg-Will to finish a game. But it's also worth noting you don't have to grab those black cards. You can simply grab a blue card instead. And you still are pretty much getting the demonic tutor effect. So kind of like similar to Vintage, this is a better hit card than Recurring Insight was, and I haven't missed that card at all, because a tutor in a deck like this is just as much a win as any other bomb card. Gilded Lotus, another card that people don't seem to like as much. I absolutely love Gilded Lotus. You can very easily use your colorless mana ramp or even ritual type ramp like Mana Vault to drop this really early. You can immediately use it to curve into any of the wheels or any of the into-hand tutors, into the Necro, lets you split into Doomsday, gives you that mana split that's so important from all the other cards. But it gets you way ahead, and it's a Black Lotus every single turn, so you keep this card around even one more turn, and you've already netted mana off of it. It's very good with the Mind Over Matter, and the fact that it just gives you so much colored mana just gives you access to pretty much every card in the deck, and you're pretty much at mana barrier and ready to win once Gilded Lotus is out. So it may seem like kind of weird as the one off curve ramp card, but I would not trade this for a crappy 2-drop rock any day. Not in 1,000 years. The thing is way too powerful. Did again a card that's disgusting in one-on-one, and even when you're not playing one-on-one, it just gives you obscene amounts of mana. You can do some really silly stuff with it, like I said before, with the Mind Over Matter on taps, copy artifact, etc. But it also, just having a big mana rock like this also helps you fight the same kind of strategies that something like Vandal Blast and Hurkyl's Recall are trying to stop. Like if someone plays a Winter Orb, or locks all your lands down in some other way, or Armageddon, you don't really give a shit if you've played a Gilded Lotus. Time Spiral. Time Spiral, yet again, is one of those wheel cards. Has the instant win synergy with the High Tide. Lets you untap all your lands so that later in the game, this is actually more efficient than your Twister or Wheel of Fortune and Windfall, etc., because you can potentially cast this for 0 or as a ritual when you're drawing 7, which drawing 7 in this deck when you have open mana has pretty good hit odds for just instantly winning the game. Talked about the Mind Over Matter a little bit. It's also worth noting that the Time Spiral and the Time Twister uses my shuffle effects to bring the cards I need back into my deck, and they do it seamlessly where I'm not playing some kind of janky card to shuffle my deck back in. I'm playing cards that are power cards that let me shuffle my deck back in, which is relevant when I'm using the line to exile everyone's deck with jeleva when I lose all my cards. But even more important than that, just getting my good cards back into my deck when I've used a lot of good cards, especially when I'm fighting a grindy game. And especially when, let's say I even use the Yawgmoth's Will or lose the Yawgmoth's Will early, and we've got a lot of tutor cards in the bin, or a lot of cards that we're trying to look for our line to win. Being able to shuffle is very, very important. And then finally, the namesake card of the deck, in my opinion, the Mind's Desire. This is the card that we're building to the entire game. Most of our games are going to end with some combination of either Yawgmoth's Will or Mind's Desire. These cards, this is the big storm card. This is the card that if I get 7-8 flips off of, the game is probably over. You can almost think of it as like another wheel spell, except all the spells you hit off the wheel are now free to cast. This card is the nuts, and this card is the deck. There's probably about 1,000 other things I wanted to say, but I feel like I've droned on for like a long, long time. So I guess that'll be it for now.